We make the happy stuff. What do you need? Jet, Psycho, a little Med-X to ease the pain? Bring it! Nah, man, more like drug suppliers. Yeah.
Chems were never just medicine. They were experiments that turned into habits, and habits that turned into control. Before the war, companies like MedTech Laboratories and Daddyo Pharmaceuticals made them for profit and progress. They said they were building a better world, but what they really built were people who couldn't stop using their products. Painkillers that made soldiers feel nothing. Stimulants that made students forget to eat or sleep. Combat enhancers that stripped fear from the brain. Every one of them came with a promise and a cost that no one wanted to talk about. MedTech made painkillers like Med-X, but they didn't warn how fast the body could fall apart when the drug wore off. They made Mentats to make people think better, but they caused dependency and memory loss. Buffout was made for athletes and Psycho was built for soldiers. Both of them made the heart beat faster than it should. These companies used human testing, military funding, and cheap marketing to spread their products. Hospitals kept them stocked, schools handed them out, and the army injected them straight into the troops wearing power armor. When the bombs fell, those drugs were in every city and every home medicine cabinet. Raiders and chem cooks took what was left and made it worse. The Great Khans and the Mojave turned broken lab tech and old formulas into street drugs like Jet, Rebound, and Turbo. The Wasteland learned that chems could give power for a few minutes, stronger hits, faster reflexes, sharper focus, but the crash could tear your body apart. Addiction isn't just a risk, it's built into every formula. The headaches, shaking hands, and muscle spasms that follow are what keep people buying and killing for the next hit. You can see what these drugs do to people. Jet addicts twitch and mumble to themselves, lost in the rush that never lasts. Psycho users tear through fights until their hearts stop. Buffout abusers look like walking muscle spasms, skin stretched tight and breathing heavy. Even Mentats, the smart chem. It leaves users staring blankly when the clarity fades. The drugs trick the brain into thinking you're fine while your body burns itself out. The more people take, the less they care about what it's doing to them. And no one controls it now. The NCR calls chem dealing a crime, but their own soldiers use Med-X in the field. Caesar's Legion bans everything from Jet to stim packs, calling them signs of weakness. Then turns around and keeps painkillers for Caesar himself. Doctors in Diamond City sell them to survivors, raiders cook them in back rooms, even vault dwellers rely on them when fights get bad. Every faction uses chems for the same reason, because they work. Chems make you think you're winning. They make pain vanish, fear disappear, and judgment shut off. They make killing easier and rest unnecessary. Then when they wear off, the body remembers everything at once. The shakes, the pain, the confusion, and the need to take more to just feel normal again. 200 years later, chems are still running the wasteland. MedTech is gone, and the world that made them is gone, but their drugs survived. Raiders and soldiers are still using the same formulas that killed people long before the bombs. Chems don't care about sides or morals. They're perfectly designed to keep people attached, and breaking those same people down until nothing's left.
Before Psycho turned soldiers into berserkers, and before Jet became the Wasteland's working class fix, there was Buffout, the pre-war world's super steroid of choice. Packaged in tidy bottles of 50 tablets, Buffout was marketed as a miracle performance enhancer that boosted strength, reflexes, and endurance to superhuman levels. It wasn't just some shady back alley chem though, this shit was everywhere. Originally designed for athletes, Buffout quickly became a staple for anyone chasing physical excellence. Pre-war competitors secretly popped these pills to sprint longer, hit harder, and train less. What started as an underground doping trend quickly spread to amateurs and even some branches of the US military. Soldiers used it to endure harsh training regimens and boost combat performance, though, unlike Psycho, Buffout was never officially sanctioned by the brass. Still, its effects were too potent to ignore. Buffout's popularity carried through the Great War's firestorm and straight into the post-apocalyptic era. In a world where strength often means survival, these little tablets can turn an average wastelander into a powerhouse that's capable of smashing through robots, raiders, or the occasional super mutant. Because of its power and addiction risk, Buffout is often banned in regulated spaces. Vault City strictly forbids it. And even New Reno's casinos and bars won't let patrons indulge while gambling or brawling. After all, a Buffout bar fight would be more than your typical bar fight. Interestingly, Buffout isn't just about strength and increasing brute force like you'd expect when you first try it. In the right hands, it's also medicinal. Despite being addictive, it can treat rickets in children when administered carefully, which is a rare case of a wasteland chem with legitimate medical applications. Over time, various hybridized Buffout variants emerged, blending its steroidal power with other chems to create potent combinations. Buffout, which is Buffout and Mentats, is a mental and physical cocktail granting +3 strength, +3 endurance, +65 HP, and +3 perception. This would have been great in college if you needed to hit the gym and cram for finals simultaneously. And we also have Psycho Buff, which is Buffout and Psycho. This was a military favorite since this variant ups damage by 25% while giving +3 strength and +3 endurance. The more you think about it, it makes sense why the military would use this. Then we have Buff Jet, which if you couldn't tell by the name is Buffout with some jet, and this was introduced in Fallout 4. This mix keeps the strength bonuses but adds time dilation, slowing the world for 15 seconds. It's raw power infused with bullet time precision. Buffout is as iconic to Fallout as Stimpaks or Radaway. It represents that old world obsession with performance, the idea that with the right pill, you can skip the grind and become something greater. Truly, it was a modern day hack to winning, but like so many chems, its promise comes with a cost. Addiction, side effects, and the temptation to rely on shortcuts instead of strength earned the hard way. In Fallout 2, Eric in Broken Hills even claims that Buffout will make your mind suffer, a line that isn't mechanically implemented but narratively nails what Buffout represents. It's power without patience and its strength with a price tag. Whether you're a pre-war athlete chasing records or a post-war scavenger brawling through raider camps, Buffout has been fueling physical dominance for over 2 centuries, and clearly it's not slowing down anytime soon.
Med-X started out as something meant to help people, not hurt them. Before the war, it was sold under a clean scientific name by MedTech Laboratories, one of the biggest medical suppliers in America. But this name wasn't always canon. Med-X was supposed to be called morphine, a heavy opioid killer strong enough to numb almost any injury. Bethesda originally named it morphine in Fallout 3, but then it was renamed Med-X globally after the Australian ratings ban. What's funny is that some terminal data, behind-the-scene notes, and editor IDs in Fallout 3 still listed as morphine. Military issued Med-X in field kits. Hospitals kept it on hand for trauma cases, and MedTech made sure it was everywhere by the time the bombs fell. The chem worked by binding to the brain's opioid receptors, blocking the body's ability to feel pain. It doesn't heal anything. It just convinced your brain that everything was fine even when it wasn't. That made it priceless on the battlefield, but also terrifying. Soldiers could walk through gunfire without realizing how badly they were hurt. They'd keep moving until their bodies gave out. 5 doses could cause a fatal overdose, and 15 meant certain death. But in war, dying quietly was better than screaming in pain. MedTech's product made that possible, and the military used it like it was just another tool. We know that power armor used during the resource wars had automatic injectors that released Med-X when the operator's health dropped too low. Later, stealth suits also did the same thing, dispensing it whenever the wearer was badly injured. It made soldiers nearly unstoppable, but it also meant the armor itself could cause addiction. Every injection made the body need more, and withdrawal hit hard. Contracted pupils, shakes, spasms, those were the signs of someone who couldn't go without it, and MedTech never talked about that part. Before the bombs, Med-X wasn't limited to the army. MedTech's other products like Radaway and Mentats were sold to civilians, and it's even heavily implied Med-X was too. It was one of the most common medical chems in circulation. First aid kits, medical stations, and clinics all stocked it. Official records call it one of the more widespread pre-war chems. That means it wasn't just soldiers using it. Ordinary people likely had access to it for pain management, and addiction came right along with it. When the Great War ended, the company that made it had vanished, but its creation survived better than almost anything else. Med-X syringes stayed sealed in clinics, vaults, and hospitals across America. 200 years later, wastelanders still use them. Raiders or settlers, it doesn't really matter who. Everyone knows Med-X dulls pain and keeps you moving, even when you shouldn't be. It's sold by doctors like Doc Crocker in the Commonwealth or even Doc Anderson. Or you'll just find it in first aid boxes, chem stashes, or on corpses of people who relied on it a little too much. In the post-war world, it's just part of survival. Wastelanders who use it regularly risk the same things the soldiers did centuries earlier. A 10 to 25% addiction rate, depending on the variant. There's tremors, mental fog, and a loss of focus when they don't have it. For a lot of people, that trade-off is worth it. Pain is everywhere, and Med-X makes it disappear, at least for a little while. For us, using it makes sense when you're pinned down by raiders or torn up by ghouls, or you're just trying to buy time in a fight you shouldn't have survived. It takes the edge off and dulls everything, and you keep standing when most people would drop. But it's easy to start relying on that, always taking it before a fight, during one, and then again after. Before long, your strength stops coming from skill or armor. It comes from the needle. In every wasteland, from the capital to the Mojave to Appalachia, Mentats shows us how far people will go to avoid pain. It's one of the few pre-war drugs that never lost its purpose. Mentats built something so powerful that when the world ended, their product didn't. MedTech Laboratories wasn't just in the business of medicine, it was in the business of ideas. Mentats were one of the biggest products sold everywhere from hospitals to high schools. They were small red tablets that promised sharper thinking and faster recall. According to pre-war records, they became popular with students, scientists, and creative types who wanted to expand the mind. The Fallout Bible even notes that consumers use them for inspiration and problem solving, not just study or work. But I will say the Bible is considered canon-ish, so whenever I reference it, I'll let you know. The active ingredient was a nootropic compound that boosted the brain's processing speed and memory formation for a short time. The effects came quickly, and so did the crash. Once it wore off, users were left foggy, tired, and irritable. The mental boost was temporary, but the damage it caused over time wasn't. Regular use led to migraines, dependency, and in some cases, lasting cognitive decline. The Fallout Bible mentions that adolescents who took Mentats showed permanent changes in intelligence, in some cases a genuine increase, but it also warns that overuse could lead to neurological disorders. Mentats made people smarter for a while, but they also made them need the chem to think clearly at all. MedTech's marketing pushed Mentats hard before the war. Terminals from Shaw High School in Fallout 4 confirmed that the company deliberately seeded schools with free samples. Principal Ronald Tanner worked with a MedTech rep named Rusty Burton to distribute them through the library's book return system. These were drugs being passed out to teenagers under the label of study aids. To make them more appealing, MedTech began producing flavored versions: grape, berry, and orange Mentats, with the flavor name still seen across multiple games. Their goal was simple: get young users hooked early. The Fallout Bible also describes MedTech's business strategy. They intentionally designed Mentats to be addictive so they could sell more of their own product, Fixer, a chem that's meant to cure addiction. And it was a profitable cycle. They created the problem and then sold the solution. Fallout 3 also features pre-war radio ads of children talking about using Mentats for better grades, showing just how normal the chem had become. There were even promotions at the National Archives where participants could win free Mentats by completing a quiz. After the bombs, we know MedTech vanished, but all their pills didn't. Sealed tins and cardboard packs survived in clinics, labs, and homes all over the country. Wasteland chemists learned how to replicate the formula. In Fallout 2, the professor in Broken Hills brags that he rediscovered how to mass produce them. 2 centuries after the war, Mentats remain one of the most common chems in existence, and their formulas even evolved. Partytime Mentats in the Mojave blend charisma and focus. Berry and grape versions in the Commonwealth and Appalachia enhance intelligence and social skill. The core idea never changed though. It's a pill that makes you feel smarter than you are. Post-war users chase that same clarity the old world once promised. The body adapts fast, and when it does, the brain demands more. Withdrawal causes confusion and headaches that make it impossible to think straight. Raiders and settlers alike use them before deals, battles, or hard decisions. For a few minutes, Mentats can make anyone feel like a genius. But when the haze fades, the mind that's left behind isn't sharper, it's dependent. For us, Mentats are the kind of chem you reach for when you need to be the smartest person in the room. One dose sharpens perception, clears the head, and makes every word feel calculated. It's useful when you're trying to outtalk a raider boss, negotiate a deal, or search a ruin for something everyone else missed. In short term, Mentats can make you think faster. Long term, they make you wonder if you can think at all without them. Across every region, the capital Wasteland, Mojave, Commonwealth, and Appalachia, Mentats still carry that image of progress. They represent the pre-war belief that intelligence could be engineered, that human flaws could be fixed with chemistry. The Fallout Bible frames them as a product of arrogance more than evil. MedTech really believed they were improving humanity, but in reality, they built a dependency that outlasted civilization.
One of Fallout's finest addictive chems is natural in origin. It's so natural that it grows right out of the desert soil. Coyote tobacco chew is one of those pure homegrown stimulants harvested from wild and domestic coyote tobacco plants scattered across the Mojave. Chewed raw, this reinvigorating plant delivers a mild but noticeable kick, +1 to perception and agility, and in hardcore mode, it reduces sleep by 30 points. It's perfect for long-term treks under the burning sun or late-night recon missions when sleep is an absolute luxury. But like many wasteland vices, it has a cost. Prolonged use can lead to addiction, sapping perception and charisma by 1 when withdrawal kicks in. All in all, it's relatively subtle compared to chems like Jet or Psycho, but enough to dull your edge if you rely on it too often. If I had to take a shot in the dark based on these drawbacks, I'd assume it's basically today's weed, and it kinda even looks like it. Coyote Tobacco Chew isn't just a chem though, since it can also be a crafting ingredient. With the Honest Hearts DLC installed, it can be brewed into black coffee, combining old world morning luxuries with frontier survivalism. Unlike the chew itself, coffee made with it isn't addictive. It's a clever workaround for couriers who want the perk without the habit. The plant is scattered across the region in abundance too. Westside alone boasts over 24 plants, while places like Good Springs, Wolfhorn Ranch, Boulder City, and Ranger Station Echo have their own hidden patches if you know where to look. And of course, in true Fallout fashion, Coyote Tobacco gets its own moment of badassery. In one of Boone's possible endings, he spits a wad of tobacco into Legate Lanius's eyes, in front of the entire Legion army.
Driven mad by Caesar's victory at Hoover Dam and unable to escape his memories, Boone staged a suicide mission against the Legate. Fighting as he wished he would have fought on the day of his wife's death, he brought down scores of legionaries before being caught. Before his crucifixion, he was brought before the Legate, who expressed his admiration for Boone's reckless abandon. Boone spat tobacco in his eye, for all of Caesar's armies to see.
In my opinion, it's one of the most defiant and perfect endings for New Vegas. And for a fun fact, if you didn't already know, the game director Joshua Sawyer named it after an entry in Growing Food in the High Desert Country, where this Latin name here, which means coyote tobacco, is a real desert plant. In the Mojave though, it's more than a botanical wonder, it's a simple addictive tool for staying sharp in a world that never sleeps. Some chems in the Fallout universe are designed to fuel aggression, turning soldiers into raging beasts or athletes into steroid-pumped monsters. Calmex, though, based on the name alone, is different. It's quiet, subtle, a pre-war soft tranquilizer that doesn't numb pain or give you superhuman brawn, but instead strips away distractions, sharpening the senses that matter most when survival hangs by a thread. Marketed before the Great War as a prescription-grade relaxant, Calmex offered just enough sedation to dull anxiety without knocking the user unconscious. Ironically, while it calms the body, it also heightens awareness. Users experience boost to perception and agility, while sneak attack damage doubles. It's a perfect chem for thieves or for anyone who prefers to strike from the shadows rather than storm the gates. Of course, in Fallout 4 survival mode, Calmex shows its drawbacks. Using it increases thirst by 50 points and raises disease risk by 7%. So even these light tranquilizers come with hidden costs. Addiction is always lurking too. Then there's the elusive Calmex Silk, introduced in Fallout 4 Nuka World. It looks just like the regular version, but with one powerful change. It boosts luck by 3, on top of Calmex's baseline bonuses. And unlike most chems, it can't be crafted. To get it, you've got to deal with this guy, the Nuka Town Market's shady dealer. Hand him 10 pieces of bloodworm meat and he'll pay you back in silk. After that, he'll restock it every time you leave and re-enter the market. It's a solid wasteland exchange where you trade fresh meat for raw distilled advantage. Interestingly, Calmex Silk also slipped into Fallout 76's files. Early PC players managed to grab it through the developer test cell exploits at launch, where it carried the same effects as in Fallout 4. Surprise, surprise. Though it's unobtainable by normal means, its existence hints at Bethesda's plans to keep Calmex's legacy alive across titles. Calmex even found its way into Fallout the board game, where it takes on a slightly different role. Instead of stat bonuses, using Calmex during a test or fight guarantees an extra hit when perception or agility is involved. But as the digital games, there's a catch. You've got to pass an endurance check afterward or you become addicted. Addiction in the board game means you can't discard Calmex and you'll have to pay 1 bottle cap just to ready it again. Even in tabletop form, Calmex captures the essence of Fallout chems, short-term power at long-term cost. In the end, Calmex is a chem for specialists. It doesn't make you stronger or more resilient in the traditional sense, but it gives you an edge when stealth, precision, and luck decide the outcome of a fight.
As we know with medics, the US Army wanted soldiers who could fight longer, hit harder, and ignore pain entirely. To get that, they worked with a private research branch run by General Constantine Chase, who oversaw development of a new combat stimulant called Psycho. It started as an experimental amphetamine, something almost like but legally distinct from methamphetamine. It was made to make troops unstoppable. Logs from Operation Anchorage confirmed the chem was rushed into service during the Alaskan campaign, which was approved by Chase and Dr. Adrian Adami, even though clinical trials were still incomplete. The delivery system was unique, a red-tinted injector that mixed volatile chemicals seconds before entering the bloodstream. The result was a sudden surge in aggression, pain suppression, and adrenaline. Soldiers on Psycho could charge machine gun nests without flinching. They felt invincible, and for a few minutes, they almost were. But that same drug that dulled fear also dulled judgment. Commanders quickly learned that once dosed, these troops were nearly impossible to control. The Fallout 2 official strategies and secrets guide describe them as tough but uncontrollable. Side effects were severe from the start. The stimulant could trigger fatal heart attacks in users with weak hearts, something still seen later in Fallout games where NPCs die instantly if exposed to Psycho. Prolonged use led to aggression, paranoia, and even eventually full-blown psychosis. The Anchorage holotape from Fallout 3 has Dr. Adami admitting she hopes her Hippocratic Oath still means something after authorizing the drug's use.
Positions log, Dr. Adrian Adami, United States Army, Anchorage, Alaska, forward base. Considering what's at stake, General Chase and I both feel the chem codename Psycho can be of significant use during this operation. I've read the early clinical trials, and there are certainly some possible side effects. Dementia, psychotic aggression, and of course addiction. But the adverse effects do seem limited. Okay, I do realize the chem was developed by Chase's R&D division, but if the thing works, it works. Can we really afford to be picky at this point? Some of these ground pounders have family in Anchorage. I'll give them any boost I damn well can. I just hope my Hippocratic Oath is still speaking to me when this whole mess is over with.
Clearly, we have a moral cost behind its creation. By the time of the Great War, it's implied that Psycho's use had expanded beyond military testing and was no longer fully contained. The military used it for human wave assaults, and supply leaks likely carried doses beyond combat zones. According to the Fallout Bible, Psycho was created during a period of military desperation, near the end of the Anchorage campaign, a last-ditch effort to hold the line at any cost. After the bombs, the recipe survived, passed down through raiders and chem cooks who valued anything that gave an edge in a fight. In Fallout 4, Psycho is described as a mixture of military-grade compounds blended with hub flower extract, something the post-war wasteland learned to recreate. Raiders use it constantly because it takes away their hesitation and fear. Characters like Kate show what that kind of dependency looks like. Years of use leave her immune to normal detox treatments, until advanced Vault-Tec equipment is used to cure her. The drug burns both body and mind. She even describes the injections as physically painful from the acid content. Variants appeared as the wasteland improvised. Slasher combines Psycho with medics. Psycho Jet fused it with Jet to slow time and boost strength. And Psycho Buff added Buffout for raw endurance. Every version kept the same core idea: turn the body into a weapon by shutting down restraint. Chronic users develop dementia, internal organ damage, and irreversible aggression. At advanced stages, even a Dickdoll or Fixer can't fully break the addiction. When we use it, Psycho isn't one of the chems you take lightly. It's the last resort, the one you pull out when you're cornered, outnumbered, and running on instinct. Injecting it floods your system, steadies your aim, and it draws out pain until what's left is raw aggression. The world narrows to a fight in front of you. It can save your life, and your battle shouts turn feral.
Fucking kill!
All restraint just disappears. Keep using it though, and it stops being a boon. You stop choosing to fight harder, you just need to. And that's exactly what the pre-war army built it for. The government was willing to erase empathy and reason just to build a better soldier. The Fallout Bible frames Psycho's creation as part of the military's declining ethics during the Anchorage campaign. Science and morality traded for short-term victory. 2 centuries later, the same red syringe is still passed around the wasteland, promising strength and leaving absolute chaos behind. But don't you just love it? Rebound is one of the Mojave's lesser-known chems, but it traces back to the same addiction cycle that made Jet so common after the war. It's a liquid cocktail stored in a metal hip flask with glass vials strapped to the side. Tubes feed the drug through a needle at the top, delivering a steady dose instead of one big hit. Where Jet gives an instant rush, Rebound spreads it out, keeping your reflexes sharp and your energy burning for a full minute. No one really knows who designed it, but the look of the device tells you it's a wasteland creation, not a pre-war medtech product. It does kind of feel cobbled together, the kind of thing chem dealers or mercenaries might have built to stretch their Jet supply. Notes in the Fallout New Vegas files show that Rebound uses Jet's addiction profile, which means it might be chemically similar. It's possibly a diluted or reformulated version mixed with adrenaline or other stimulants. Basically, it's Jet made to last longer. Rebound's main appeal is control. It doesn't hit as hard, but it keeps the user alert and moving. That makes it popular with gunmen, bounty hunters, and anyone who needs to stay fast on their feet. Its slow release avoids the immediate crash of Jet, but the risk of addiction doesn't go away. Using both at once, Jet for burst, Rebound for sustain, gives a powerful edge in combat, and that's why it shows up in stashes across the Mojave, and even in remote places like the Divide and Big MT. It's the kind of chem born from scavengers trying to improve on something that was already dangerous, and it worked. Rebound's continuous stimulant effect keeps the body running past exhaustion. Over time, that constant strain does the same thing all chems do. It burns the user out. For the courier, Rebound is a chem for endurance. It doesn't give that instant jolt Jet is known for, but instead it keeps your reflexes alive longer, your hands steadier, and your focus on the fight. It's useful when you need to stay moving through a long gunfight or chase, but it comes with the same risk Jet always has: dependency. The line between control and compulsion gets thinner each time you use it. Rebound might keep you running, but it also makes it harder to stop.
Some chems in Fallout promise strength, some promise speed, but Day Tripper promises escape. Before the Great War, this mild hallucinogen was marketed as happiness in a bottle. It was a way for everyday Americans to take the edge off a world that was quickly unraveling. Housed in bright green bottle decorated with flowers, Day Tripper boosts charisma and luck by 3 points, but lowers strength by 2, reflecting its tranquilizing floaty high. Day Tripper was a pre-war cultural phenomenon, cutting across class lines. It was taken by conspiracy theorists, students at CIT, married couples looking to unwind, and veterans returning from the Anchorage campaign who struggled with PTSD. The drug induced a mellow, euphoric state that made socializing easier and anxieties fade away, at least temporarily. Physical tasks became harder, sure, but when your mind's drifting through a pleasant hallucination, lifting heavy things isn't really the point. During the final decades before the Great War, with food riots, the Sino-American War, and the collapse of social order, Day Tripper's popularity skyrocketed. It became a shared escape valve for a society on the brink, equal parts party favor and coping mechanism. Unlike stronger chems, Day Tripper could be combined with other substances fairly safely, though doing so dramatically increased addiction risk. Overindulgence then and now can lead to full-blown hallucinations. After the Great War, it remained popular for the same reason. Sometimes people just needed to forget. Wastelanders continue to seek it out, not for combat enhancement, but for those rare moments of levity in an otherwise brutal existence where everyone is surrounded by radroaches or worse. This drug is fortunately found scattered throughout the Commonwealth, stowed away in bathrooms, old bars, behind cash registers, in raider dens, and even in a broken toilet at Hallucigen Inc. Diamond City chemists and good neighbor dealers keep it in stock, and if you're lucky, you'll find a bottle resting next to a skeleton who probably went out with a smile. Mechanically, Day Tripper carries a 35% addiction chance, and withdrawal lowers both luck and charisma by 1 point until treated. But lore-wise, it's one of the few chems that reveals a softer side of pre-war America, a population chasing good vibes while the world burned around them. In Fallout, Day Tripper is a time capsule of a society that wanted to believe that a pill could make everything better. For some, maybe it did, at least for a little while. If there's one chem that truly defines the Fallout wasteland, it's Jet. Psycho might make soldiers scream louder, and Buffout might make them punch harder. But Jet rewires reality itself. It's the chem that turned entire towns into addicts, built empires for crime families, and spread from one coast to the other like a stimulant-fueled wildfire. Jet's origins are equal parts disgusting and genius. The most common form comes from the fumes of Brahmin shit. Wastelanders get high by inhaling aerosolized cow poop, and although it sounds like a joke, this mutated extract acts like a powerful methamphetamine when inhaled, triggering endorphin surges and giving users an intense rush of energy, alertness, and euphoria. For a few fleeting minutes, time stretches, reflexes sharpen, and reality bends in a way that makes the brutal wasteland almost tolerable. Almost. While there's evidence that some form of Jet existed before the bombs fell, its modern legacy begins in New Reno, early 23rd century, with one name: Myron, a teenage chem prodigy and pervert with a massive ego and a talent for manipulation.
See, we started experimenting with the Brahmin shit as fertilizer for the shrooms, except get this, then we noticed the slaves working the fertilizer vats were getting high from the fumes.
This kid became the Mordino crime family's golden boy. At the time, the Mordinos were selling peyote-based hallucinogens, but Big Mordino wanted something stronger, something he could use to control the mining town of Redding, and that's where Myron delivered. Basing his research on contaminated pre-war protein extracts that Brahmin had metabolized over centuries, he noticed that slaves tending Brahmin fertilizer were getting high just by inhaling the fumes. After hundreds of test subjects, many of whom died of heart attacks and hemorrhages, he finally cracked the formula. The result was a hyper-addictive inhalant, cheap to make, and nearly impossible to resist. Myron refined it, packaged it into neat little inhaler canisters, and gave Big Jesus Mordino exactly the weapon he needed. By 2241, Jet was flooding Redding. Miners once independent became chemically enslaved. Entire supply chains developed just to keep the town hooked. Myron's version was so potent that standard addiction cures like Fixer or Addictol didn't work. The only effective counter was a brutal endorphin-blocking treatment that made withdrawal feel like rad scorpion venom coursing through your veins. After the Chosen One's intervention and the spread of a Jet antidote, the Mordinos collapsed, but Jet didn't die with them. Its ease of manufacture made it inevitable. Any half-decent chemist with access to fertilizer could whip up their own batch in the dirtiest backroom lab imaginable. From the Great Khans in Red Rock Canyon to junkies in the capital wasteland, Jet became a cultural constant. Post-war Jet is typically sold in small disposable capsules meant for metered-dosed inhalers. You pop a canister, huff deeply, let it settle in your lungs, and seconds later, you're flying. For bulk buyers like Redding's operations in the 2240s, Jet comes unprocessed and must be carefully refined into user doses. Mess that up, and contamination risks make the drug even deadlier. Some wastelanders even mix Jet into saline solutions for intravenous injection, though inhalation remains the fastest and most iconic method. Jet's euphoric rush lasts only a few minutes, but subjectively it feels longer, an altered state where time itself bends. It's both psychological and physical. Users quickly redefine normal as the Jet high, and sobriety becomes the alien state. The addiction rate is through the roof, and the chem's availability made it one of the most widely abused substances in Fallout's history. Even after decades, attempts to curb Jet use rarely succeed. Antidotes exist, but production of the chem outpaces cures. Once the Mordino monopoly fell though, Jet exploded into countless variants across different regions. We had Rocket, which was found in the Mojave, made by mixing Jet with Nuka-Cola and detergent for a sharper, faster rush. We also had Turbo, which is yet another Mojave specialty, combining Jet with Cazador poison and Brock flower to slow down time for everyone but the user. We can't forget Jet Fuel, which dropped in the Commonwealth, which was basically a concoction blending Jet with flamer fuel for a particularly combustible high. And if you mix drugs, you'd have Buff Jet and Psycho Jet, which are the hybrid mixes with Buffout or Psycho that turn users into chemically enhanced beasts with slowed perception. And lastly, we also have Ultra Jet, invented by Murphy in the Capital Wasteland for ghouls, whose altered physiology makes regular Jet ineffective. By adding sugar bombs and corrosive chemicals, he created a version twice as potent. Ultra Jet eventually made its way to the NCR Southwest and the Commonwealth, cementing Jet's coast-to-coast dominance. Jet was more than recreational though, it was weaponized. Myron's original formula was deliberately engineered to enslave populations, creating chemical dependence immune to standard cures. The Mordinos wielded it like a political tool. Later, the Omertas used Jet and morphine to control sex workers in New Vegas, while raider gangs like the Fiends built their entire identities around being constantly high. Its cultural spread is staggering. From the burrows in Appalachia, where early survivors were already inhaling Brahmin fumes, to the Mojave's chem fiends, Jet became a universal language of escape. Gangs, caravans, raiders, even vault dwellers found ways to get it. Old Lady Palmer of Vault 101 used to lead expeditions to collect Jet from the wasteland for trade and exploration. Behind the scenes, the idea for Jet came from Fallout designer Chris Avalon, inspired by watching his brother use an inhaler for asthma. He imagined a chem that could be delivered the same way, quickly efficient and dangerously habit-forming. Over time, Jet became so integral to Fallout's identity that even development oversights like the accidental mention of Jet on a pre-war terminal in Fallout 4 became part of fan debates about its timeline. This perv was eventually killed in the den, stabbed by a Jet addict less than a year after the Chosen One's victory over the Enclave, but his legacy outlived him for centuries. Jet transcended its origins, going from a Mordino racket to a pillar of wasteland vice. A chem so easy to make and so devastatingly addictive that no regime, no faction, and no cure has ever truly eradicated it, and nothing likely ever will. Jet is a symbol of the wasteland itself, improvised, addictive, widespread, and almost impossible to control. A single huff can turn fear into euphoria, lethargy into speed, despair into something that feels like hope. But like everything in Fallout, that hope comes at a cost.
Steady isn't a polished medtech formula or something made out of a clean lab. No pre-war records ever mention it, and every inhaler that turns up looks handmade. It's an empty Sunset sarsaparilla bottle turned into a simple vapor rig. You have tinfoil heating, taped glass tubes, and a mouthpiece made from scavenged parts. The result is a field chem that forces precision through chemistry instead of skill. Each one looks different, but they all do the same thing. Lock your body into perfect stillness. No one can say who first mixed it. Some think Great Khan chem traders built it from leftover jet formulas, while others blame independent guns for hire looking for an edge. The compound shuts down tremors, steadies the pulse, and slows down breathing. It doesn't make you stronger or faster. It makes you unnaturally calm. For a sniper or mercenary, that calm can mean everything. The second the inhaler kicks in, your weapon sway vanishes and every bullet lands where it should. Steady's control comes with a heavy price. Its addiction rate is the highest of any chem in the Mojave, 80%. Most users don't even make it past the first inhaler before they're dependent. The drug's actual description says it best: potent, untested, and highly addictive. The formula was never refined or stabilized. It's a random cocktail of stimulants and muscle suppressants that keeps the body balanced for exactly 1 minute. When that balance breaks, the user crashes hard. Heart rate spikes, coordination fails, and hands start to shake. The very symptoms they were trying to stop. That cycle keeps people coming back. Some say the NCR looks the other way when their marksmen use it, because it turns average shooters into professionals. Others say that the Legion scouts loot and sell it despite their ban on chems. There's no proof of either story, but the bottles keep turning up in every corner of the Mojave. Vault 3, Camp McCarran, Gomorrah, even Hopeville. Wherever there's a gunfight, someone's carrying a dose. The Great Khans for sure trade in it. Jack in the Red Rock Canyon sells it freely. The chem doesn't belong to any one faction. It just moves between them all like currency. Jet or Psycho overwhelm the mind, but Steady numbs it. It creates a focus so intense it cuts out fear and instinct. The world goes silent, your breathing sinks to the trigger pull, and killing becomes mechanical. Then when it fades, the body overcorrects. Panic, shaking, the need for another breath from the bottle just to feel centered again. Users start believing they can't shoot straight without it. Its effect resembles the stabilization drugs the pre-war military tested on long-range marksmen, but no surviving record directly connects the two. At least not yet. It's possible some of the data resurfaced after the war and inspired Steady's design. For the courier, Steady is a precision tool. One inhalation freezes weapon sway completely, letting every shot hit dead center. It's perfect for snipers or VATS users who rely on accuracy, but it's also one of the easiest chems to lose control of. With its 80% addiction rate, using it even once can create a dependency that's nearly impossible to shake. The more you take it, the more you believe you need it. At some point, it becomes the only way to keep your hands from trembling. Turbo, just like some of the others, isn't a polished pre-war chem. There's no record of it in any vault files, medical terminals, or medtech archives. Every canister looks handmade. A jet inhaler duct taped to a can of Hairstyles brand hairspray. The kind of thing you'd expect from a Great Khan workbench. It's a wasteland creation built by people who already thought jet wasn't fast enough. Instead of speeding the user up, Turbo slows the world down. For a few seconds, everything around you moves in slow motion. Enemies, bullets, explosions, all while you move at normal speed. We do know that the Great Khans might possibly be tied to its origin. In Fallout New Vegas, you can earn the recipe from Diane in the Red Rock Drug Lab during the quest to Abadabba Honeymoon. That recipe uses 4 ingredients: jet, a Brock flower, a Cazador poison gland, and turpentine. It can be made at a campfire or electric hot plate with a science skill of 50. If the Khans didn't invent turbo outright, they perfected it. The combination of Jet's stimulant base and the venom from Cazadors gives a brief, violent reaction in the brain, a neurological jolt that distorts time perception. The effect lasts about 3 seconds, but it feels longer. During that moment, the courier can fire, reload, and move normally while everything else crawls. It doesn't just alter reaction time, it rewrites how the brain interprets it. The user isn't faster, their mind just stops accepting the pace of the world around them. Mixing Jet's amphetamine vapor with venom and solvent would shock the nervous system, raising heart rate and causing strain on blood vessels and vision. Addiction is listed at 20%. Not the highest, but it can be deceptive. It's addictive because reality feels wrong afterward. Once you've seen combat slowed to a crawl, normal speed feels too fast. The Khans treat it like proof that they're still chem innovators, bragging that it gives them an edge over raiders and NCR patrols. Jet itself was already a dangerous chem, as we all know by now. Adding poison to that mix turned it into something worse. Jet re-engineered for control rather than pleasure. For 3 seconds, you own time, and that illusion is enough to destroy people. The addiction is bad. Users don't stumble or slur, they just become detached. Everything around them feels off tempo, like the world won't catch up. There's no confirmed medical description in the Mojave records, but dialogue and chem behavior let us know that withdrawal comes with lost agility, confusion, and mental fatigue. As for the courier, turbo is one of the closest things to stopping time. It gives a few seconds of total control, perfect for dodging grenades, escaping an ambush, or emptying a clip before anyone can blink. But the slow motion advantage always comes with the same risk: dependence. The more you use it, the harder normal speed feels. Turbo doesn't make you faster, it just makes everything else too slow to bear.
Before the bombs fell, not every chem was about strength or fury. Some were about enlightenment, or at least that's what people like to tell themselves. Daddyo was the chem of choice for beatniks, intellectuals, and granolas, and counterculture types before the Great War. Injected through a small syringe filled with bright orange liquid, Daddyo boosts intelligence and perception, sharpening the mind and senses, but at the cost of charisma, making users brilliant and insightful but distant and aloof, and if we're honest with ourselves, often insufferable to talk to. In Fallout 4, it's a rare find, stashed away in places like the South Boston Police Department's toilet bowl, sold by chem dealers in Diamond City and Goodneighbor, or placed in remote Far Harbor bunkers. In Nuka World, you can even score it through the Nuka-cade if you've saved up enough tickets. Culturally, Daddyo feels like Fallout's take on the mid-century intellectual chem craze, a wasteland sketch of artists and philosophers chasing higher thought through chemical means. It's not about physical enhancement or adrenaline highs, it's about clarity, even if that clarity comes at the expense of human connection. Among all the chems scattered across the Mojave, Hydra stands out for one key reason. It doesn't just alter your mind, it heals your body. Packaged in a Soupy Yum fruit drink bottle with 3 glass vials taped around its middle, each feeding into the mouth of the bottle through thin rubber tubes, Hydra looks improvised, and in my opinion, it kind of reminds me of a makeshift bomb. It's a chem born of wasteland ingenuity though, straddling the line between medicine and narcotic. Hydra is used to restore crippled limbs, making it invaluable in New Vegas, especially on hardcore mode where stim packs or sleep can't fix those broken bones. Unlike a doctor's bag, Hydra is weightless and applies its healing effects gradually over 60 seconds. Perfect for drawn-out firefights where limbs keep breaking faster than you can patch them up with. Many NCR field hospitals use it on the front lines, and its scent is so potent you can smell it lingering in places like Camp Forlorn Hope. But this miracle fix, of course, comes at a cost. Hydra has a 10% addiction chance, and withdrawal slams you with -3 endurance, making every fight that much tougher. Excessive use causes dilated pupils, elevated heart rate, sweating, and all the classic hallmarks of chem abuse. It's a practical tool, but like most chems, it can quickly become a crutch. Hydra is scattered throughout the Mojave though, inside NCR facilities, powder ganger hideouts, Legion camps, and Great Con drug labs. You can find doses in places like the Nevada Highway Patrol Station, Silver Peak Mine, the Prospector's Den, or even tucked beneath benches and inside bathtubs. Like other drugs of choice, it's also craftable if you learn the recipe from Jack or Diane at Red Rock Canyon. With a solid survival skill and some cave fungus, you can cook your own supply, especially after the patch Bethesda dropped over a decade ago that reduced ingredient requirements. Honest Hearts' caverns and Lonesome Road's tunnelers make gathering fungi even easier. So if you didn't guess it already, Hydra's name is a nod to Greek mythology, the Hydra whose severed heads would regrow twofold. Fittingly, this chem regenerates crippled limbs, making the courier feel nearly unstoppable, until the addiction hits.
XL was one of the last great promises of pre-war science, a drug that could enhance every aspect of the human condition at once. Developed as a prototype performance enhancer before the Great War, it was meant to push soldiers and civilians beyond natural limits. But even in the age of wonder drugs and powered armor, this one went a little too far. Clinical trials failed, the research was shelved, and the surviving batches leaked onto the black market, where it became a myth talked about by chem dealers and former scientists. The official description in Fallout 4 calls it a general performance enhancer that never got out of the prototype stage, but was widely distributed on the black market. XL worked, but no one could control it. The chem boosts every special attribute by 2 points for 2 minutes. Strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. It's the only known compound in the series that touches all 7 traits at once. But the side effects match the ambition. Addiction carries a 35% chance, and when it takes hold, each of those same attributes drops by 1. The result is the body collapsing under the weight of its own overstimulation. The drug comes in a small metal inhaler, similar to the designs used for Jet or Calmex. That design implies rapid bloodstream delivery, inhaled vapors that trigger an instant full body reaction. The exact chemistry is unknown, but the inhaler's design might mean it's a synthetic adrenal or neurostimulant, meant to push every metabolic system into overdrive. Like a lot of pre-war projects, it likely crossed the line between medicine and military experiment. X-Cell was power in a canister, and no one cared what it did to the people who used it. After the bombs fell, the formula survived in trace amounts. In the Commonwealth, X-Cell is one of the rarest chems in existence. Only a few doses can be found, and it occasionally appears for sale at shops. It even shows up as a prize in Nuka World's Nukacade. In Fallout 76, the chem shows up again. Or, well, before, timeline-wise. It's nearly identical in effect and addiction rate. For the sole survivor or any wanderer who finds it, X-Cell is raw advantage. 2 minutes of absolute clarity and control. Every stat, every skill sharpened to its peak, but it's also a trap. The crash hits harder than the high, and the addiction can strip away the very traits it enhances. Used in moderation, it can turn a losing fight into survival. Used carelessly, it reminds you why the pre-war world didn't survive its own ingenuity.
If Jet is the Wasteland's working man's pick-me-up, then Afterburner Gum is its nuclear-fueled cousin. Originally appearing in Fallout Tactics, this potent methamphetamine chewing gum hits the central nervous system hard. The initial euphoric surge lasts only a few minutes, but in that brief window, users experience a flood of energy and strength, and raw intensity, similar to cocaine but more cocaine-y and in Fallout form. You won't stumble across this stuff at your average trading post though. Afterburner is rare and valuable, found on unlucky civilians, in Vault Zero on a corpse, or clutched by super mutants in Jefferson. There is a quirky encounter where either Little Boy or Fat Man might be packing a piece, so if you're playing Tactics and want a new addiction, now you know. Mechanically, it mirrors Jet from Fallout 2, but with a twist. Its addiction is only temporary, burning hot and fast rather than permanently wrecking your system. It was even planned to return in Van Buren, sold by the character Anson, cementing its place as one of the Wasteland's most intense, fleeting highs. But of course that didn't come to fruition, so for now, we only get to experience it in 2D. Not every chem in the Wasteland comes from a lab. Some ooze straight out of nature. Ant nectar is one of those random yet surprisingly effective natural substances, secreted by the mutated giant ants that roam the capital Wasteland and Mojave. It's not as energetic or as chewy as the Afterburner Gum, but it's more slurpable and super steroidy from a bug's abdomen type of substance. Regular ant nectar is cracked though. Upon consumption, it boosts the user's strength dramatically, turning even a scrawny scavenger into a powerhouse capable of taking on any raider gang. But this brute force comes at a cost. Your intelligence and charisma take a nosedive, leaving you strong but dim-witted, so depending on the situation, it can sometimes be worthwhile. Then there's fire ant nectar, secreted by the more dangerous fire ant variants. This version is spicier, literally. Drinking it increases agility while gutting your intelligence even more severely than the standard kind. On top of that, it grants a 25% fire resistance buff, making it a rare chem that actually offers both physical and defensive perks. It can be super handy if you're planning to wade into a flamethrower enemy type of fight. And finally, the Queen's secret weapon, Ant Queen pheromones, sometimes referred to as Ant Queen nectar. This is no combat booster though. This is Fallout's version of liquid charm. It's a potent aphrodisiac that raises charisma significantly, kind of like oysters, except this substance actually works. The downside is that it tanks intelligence and perception, so while you might sweet talk your way through a settlement, you probably won't notice the Deathclaw sneaking up behind you. Fun fact though, this chem is a cheeky nod to the Elder Scroll 3 Morrowind's Telvanni Bugmusk, a perfume so persuasive the game literally says even a barbarian can be persuaded wearing it. Bethesda clearly has a thing for insect-based charm enhancers, so whether you're going for raw power, agility, or charisma, these bug-borne substances prove you don't always need a chemistry set to get you hooked. Sometimes, all it takes is a hungry scavenger and a giant ant secretion. We hope you enjoyed the video on addictive substances within the Wasteland, but if you're into creepy Fallout lore, stay tuned and consider subbing. We really do appreciate you guys watching, and remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time, and we'll see you in the next.